So one exercise that I'm a really big fan of, it's very simple, but there's a huge amount of benefits. This is more of like a Tai Chi inspired exercise. It can work as an exercise for mental focus, meditation. You can get a lot of that balance and foot articulation as well with it. So super good, super useful. Personally, I like to do this in the morning. I like to go in the backyard. It's about 10 meters or so. So I do this going forwards and backwards with my eyes closed. And then that kind of gives me a good idea of my mental state for the day, of my balance. Of course, eyes closed, it's an option, but I'll show you what that exercise looks like. So all it is just walking. I prefer hands in pockets, so I'm not using the arms for the balance. And the idea is just walking really slow. So I stand on one leg. I'm standing upright. I try to stand with decent posture, so not hunched over. Where the head is really important because the head is going to lead the balance. So I'm standing. I take a step forward. My foot contacts the floor, and so now my head is moving. My head moves gently forward. I keep the hands in the pockets. Main idea with this exercise is try not to stop. Try not to pause. So we're moving in a deliberately slow, drawn out manner. But the whole point is to maintain balance and to not stop. And you don't need, right, I mentioned I do this over 10 meters, but you don't need a lot of space because what you can do, so as I walk forward, and I run out of space, I can just reverse direction. So even if you have this tiny living room, as long as you can take 2 or 3 paces forward, you can still do this exercise. You just take a step forward and then a step backwards, and instead of walking a set distance, all you're going to do is you go forwards and you go backwards. And the slow movement, again, it forces you to really be aware and really be mindful of what's happening in your body, where the balance is, how your feet are moving, how your feet react. It forces you to be more mindful of your posture. And one thing that I love about this, specifically that backward step, is you get this wonderful articulation of the foot that you may not do when you walk. So watch what happens when I step backwards, right? The toes go first, then my foot rolls through the toes, and then it gradually goes through the ball of the foot, through the middle of the foot, through the heel. So we're to learn, and this is going to help with the idea of soft landings and being soft on your feet in general, is learning that the feet they're not bricks, the feet articulate and they bend, and a landing that's soft, it's not one impact, it's actually 2 or 3 impacts happening just in the foot itself before the knees or the hips do any absorption. We're going to talk about that in more detail because I think that's also an important factor for foot health. But this idea of slow walking, it can help you to understand that articulation, because obviously when you're absorbing a jump, you're absorbing an impact. Of course it's not slow, it happens really fast. So to do the movement slow, it gives you more time to understand what's actually happening in your body. So yeah, I highly recommend slow walking. I think it's a fantastic exercise in so many ways. And of course, if you want to challenge yourself, it's very simple. So right now I'm just doing basic eyes open. So 2 challenge rounds. The first one would be eyes closed. Eyes closed requires a lot more focus and a lot more mindfulness. And what's going to happen is the ankle ends up moving a lot more. It ends up working a lot harder, just as we saw in the one leg balance. Whoop-a. And I still, as I said, I prefer to keep the hands in the pockets so that I can focus more on the feet and I don't have a temptation to use the arms when balancing, trying to move the whole time. And second challenge round, if you want to include that, is not to use the heel of the foot. So trying to stay on the toes the whole time. That's going to be a little bit more of a calf muscle workout, but it's going to challenge also your balance a little bit more. So it's up to you where you do this. I like this in the backyard because I like to be barefoot on the grass, but of course you're going to have a better feedback and better sensitivity of what's happening with your feet if you do it on a harder surface like a wood floor. but because this is part of my morning routine, I'm just doing this on the grass. And yeah, so let's say you have a very confined space. Let's say you live in one of those cities that has tiny, tiny apartments. Really simple. 2 paces forwards, 2 paces backwards, and just repeat it. So 1, don't go fast, slow, control it. 2, always moving, but always controlling it. No jerks, no sudden movements. And then 3, we're gonna tap, bloop, and then reverse. So even if you have like 1.5 meters to do this exercise, you can still do it. So on the 3rd step, I just tap, and then I continue. So yeah, super beneficial, goes along with that one leg balance. A lot of stuff happening with the feet, and it's a good way to start building this control and understanding and relationship of your body and your balance and the foot movements without training them in isolation. So I know I'm repeating that a lot, but it's, as I said, your feet are more complicated than you know, and there's a lot of stuff that you can do for your feet without specifically trying to work on those qualities. So give that slow walking a try.